Hi.
Hi, guys.
Hi. Good.
Good.
Great. Well, good morning to everyone and welcome to today's webinar, Harnessing the Power of Omnichannel E-Commerce with Astrid and Miyu. We'll get started in just a moment, but before that, a bit of general housekeeping. The webinar will be recorded and sent to you in a follow-up email. We'll use the last 15 minutes to answer any questions you may have, so please use the chat box to ask these during the webinar. We will try to answer as many questions as possible, but if we don't get through all of them, we'll be sure to follow up afterwards. And then, of course, feel free to use the chat box to share any thoughts and insights with the group during the call. I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Claudia, and I'm a Senior Merchant Success Manager at Shopify. I've been with Shopify for over 3.5 years now, working closely with Plus merchants like Astrid and Miyu on their growth strategy. Prior to that, I spent 11 years at a British high street fashion brand. So today we'll be talking about all things omnichannel with a brand that does this incredibly well, Astrid and Miyu. With the majority of shoppers hitting multiple touch points before making a purchase, investing in an omnichannel retail strategy has become more important now than ever. Customers have come to expect fully integrated shopping experiences that span from brick and mortar to mobile browsing and everything in between. They've also come to expect personalized shopping experience tailored to them. I'm joined today for our panel discussion by Rachel from Astrid and Miyu and Joe from Shopify Plus Partner by association only. At the end, we'll be joined by representatives from Loyalty Lion and Clayview who can help answer any questions you may have. So without further ado, representing Astrid and Miyu, I'm really excited to introduce Rachel.
Thanks, Claudia. That was a nice introduction. Hi, everyone. My name's Rachel. I'm head of e-commerce here at Astrid and Miyu. So a little bit of background about the brand, I guess, for anyone who's not familiar with who we are and what we do. We are a demi-fine jewellery company. But we've been running now for about 11 years, and we started from our founder's kitchen, selling jewelry online, to fast forward 11 years later, where a 16-strong store, physical stores, 3 online Shopify instances as well. We're growing exponentially. So yeah, I'm really excited to be here today. I've been with the company for about just over a year, I'd say, and I think a real key focus of when I joined the company is how we marry that omnichannel experience, both offline and online. And a big part of my role was looking at that online customer journey and understanding how we can evolve it and create that synergy between our physical stores. So that kind of led me on essentially to kick off a Shopify 2.0 project, which we'll discuss further down this webinar. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Rachel. Joe, over to you to tell us a bit about yourself and what you do over at BAO.
Cool, thank you. So I'm Joe Trippett. I'm a co-founder and the creative director at By Association Only. A bit about the agency. So as an agency, we primarily work with really design-conscious luxury brands, focusing largely, I would say, on fully bespoke new store design and build projects like the one we did with Astrid last year. And then also beyond that, delivering industry-leading strategy, design, and development for retained merchants like they are now. So the longevity in relationships, basically. My primary role as the creative director is to analyze and digest existing store data and then find that balance between form and function. So marrying best-in-class e-commerce UX with like really engaging brand storytelling through that aforementioned bespoke design. That'll be me.
Fab. Well, thank you and welcome. I really look forward to chatting with you both today. So one of the reasons I love working with Astrid and Miyu is because they're so deeply ingrained in the Shopify ecosystem, from Shopify payments to Shopify POS to our Plus partner, both tech and agency partners. But of course, they're also experiencing tremendous growth, both online and on the offline channels. Having said that, Rachel, do you want to kick off with elaborating on Astrid and Miyu's unique business model and what you're doing currently by way of omnichannel.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, as I mentioned, we are a 16 strong physical store and counting, and we are very heavily ingrained in the Shopify ecosystem. We definitely leverage both in terms of, like, our main port of call is making sure that our customer data is essentially in one place, and we can communicate to the customer in a way where they don't see us as online and offline. Like, it is very much like a joint kind of brand experience. And I think what makes us really unique on the market is essentially what we offer. So if you go into one of our stores, what we really try and focus on is that experiential retail element. And that's really just a fancy way of saying, like, you're going into a store and you're getting an emotive experience. And we don't just sell product, we have services, and that kind of really leverages that kind of whole memorable moment. And when you're thinking about the high street now and how it is, if you go down the route of building those kind of lifestyles, experiential stores, that kind of retention element and, you know, that kind of wow factor, it definitely services that. So a really good example I'd like to use is that recently we had Holly Willoughby actually come into our store, and she brought her daughter with her, she brought her mum with her, and this is all totally organic. Like, we didn't realize she was going to come in, and she just kind of waltzed in and was like, hey, you want to get a piercing? My mum's here. And we were like, I mean, yeah, like, come this way. And it was brilliant. Like, you know, we obviously treated her like any other customer, and she had a really lovely experience. And she actually posted online. So she posted our brand, and she said that, you know, it was kind of like a generational experience. Everybody got a piercing. And it's those kinds of things where, you know, you really kind of cement yourselves within that kind of brand, like, and it sets you apart, essentially. So in a nutshell, that kind of very wholesome and, you know, memorable, meaningful type transaction is what we're after, and how we then translate that online and continue that kind of brand experience. So yeah, it's definitely a very unique model, and I think we absolutely nailed it, personally.
100% agree. I think definitely that experiential side of things certainly sets you apart from some of your competitors. So Joe, you played a big part in Astrid and Miyu's migration to a new online store 2.0 theme. I'd love for you to kick off and tell us a bit more about what BAO have done for Astrid and Miyu, specifically around their fantastic new site, features, UX improvements, and so forth.
Yeah, it's a big list. It's been about a year, right?
Yeah, about that.
Since we started, anyway, not since the site launched. I guess for me, it was personally, anyway, it was a really exciting project because obviously, well, not obviously, but I'd known about Astrid and Miyu for years, and I'd sort of followed them quite closely and seen them growing really organically. And my wife's a huge Astrid and Miyu fan. I think one of the first things I said to Rachel when she said about Astrid and Miyu was, I said, check through customers, because I'll be on there a ton of times. So yeah, making loyalty important and focus on loyalty was personally to gain. But yeah, so as the project, so there were sort of 3 focuses, and it was very much ground up. We always say, is it an evolution or a revolution? And this was a complete revolution. So the first part was an aesthetic overhaul. So I guess making the brand more premium and consistent within store. So although it's not a technical connection or anything, it's a mental one, and that design language being the same and feeling like part of the same journey. So even like, you see, if you go to the stores, you see lots of archways and things. So we've incorporated a lot of that throughout the site, and just their tone of voice, looking at their type stack and things like that, and making the most of it. So that was the first part, that aesthetic overhaul. The second part was obviously 2.0, which was, I believe, anyway, tell me if I'm wrong, Rachel, but a huge motivator to redoing the site. So the site was a few years old, obviously wasn't built on 2.0 because it wasn't available at the time. And we basically built it from the ground up to be as flexible as possible. So For the guys at Astrid, it just means like the content and marketing teams, if they want to go and create a new page, really easy to do, really flexible sections, so they can change, like, sounds silly, but background colors, positions, whether things are image or video, and create really immersive pages. And an important part of that is obviously moving away from some sort of, I don't know how to say it, but third-party page building functionality that isn't particularly performant at the higher end. But yeah, so giving them that flexibility, products site-wide basically to change things up, and then a UX overhaul on top of that. So the brass tacks of, I mean, absolutely everything, to be honest, throughout the sales funnel and outside of that. So obviously loyalty and search were both huge parts of it, very integral to sort of Astrid, particularly, you know, in retention and acquisition. So yeah, they were a big part of it. They were very much, I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rachel, but from the get-go we knew that they would be important, and we wanted them to feel like part of the journey as opposed to something that's just bolted on retrospectively. Sometimes, you know, if it's done like that, it can be jarring, and we wanted it again to feel seamless. Tell me if I'm talking too much about this, by the way.
No, it's great.
Yeah, so integrating search and loyalty more, and then where possible, as part of any project, we always like to build in anything that we can build functionally, we will, so that it's just as performant as possible. So we had things like personalization, which again, like, ties back to stores as well. But yeah, so personalization of product, gifting was a big part of it, because obviously lots of these are gifts. So we built some really quite bespoke functionality around gifting, things like the Advent PDP, triggering your memory.
It was great. Our Advent sold out within hours. I think that was a bit
yeah
part of the bespoke build to that. So
yeah. And then so they're the three primary things really: that aesthetic overhaul, moving to 2.0, and then a UX overhaul. It's probably worth going into. So I think with, in particular, loyalty, so being such a big part of, I guess, the barometer for success, really. For us anyway, the whole thing was about making it as integrated as possible. Like I was saying, it's sometimes they're bolted on and people aren't aware that loyalty exists, or that they can use it, or how they use it. So we wanted to make that a touch point throughout the journey, basically. So there's loads of little things peppered throughout the sales funnel that just incentivize and sort of make people aware. So, like, as an example, in the push bag, it will tell you, you know, how many points you've A, got, or B, will redeem if you get that particular product or bag total. Even down to like account drawers. So instead of having a separate page for accounts, like login, sign up, we built a bespoke drawer. So if you're not signed in, the drawer comes out. You don't have to go to a separate page. And then if you're not signed in, it'll tell you the benefits of signing up, how rewards work, etc. If you are signed in, then within the page on the bag, it will tell you how many points you've got, what tier you're in, how many points you need to get to the next tier, etc. So it was making sure that that was throughout the journey. Yeah, and then search, again, it was, we obviously spent a lot of time working through making sure that that was it obviously built on Clever.js v2, so a fully bespoke version of it. And yeah, making that as sort of integrated and part of the journey as possible. One of the things we noticed really on is the way people search on Astrid was quite different. They weren't necessarily searching for products, they were searching for categories. So all the top searches are like hoop earrings, as an example. So yeah, like making what we did to alleviate that, basically the initial state when you click into the search field is it's collections and not products, and you almost never see that. it's nearly always products, but it's unlikely that one of those 4 products is going to be, the one that someone's going to click through on. So yeah, the whole journey really was a process.
That's a really good point, actually, Joe. I never really thought about it, but we have very few, if not none, long tail keywords on our search. It is all short category names, and perhaps it's just like the nature of the product, but I mean, it certainly makes it easier from our point of view, and how Cleaver has built it, so you can essentially redirect them directly to a very curated page, because obviously we have a earrings page. Customer just doesn't want to navigate to it.
Yeah, that's it. It is really easy to assume that people just want to see, or that the products is the best thing in there. But yeah, people, I think even existing buyers, if they're coming back and they bought, say, a necklace, they might not be aware about Huggies or ring sets or something. So showing them collections, I think, yeah, it's been valuable. It's clearly what people are searching for, because the metrics are indicating that. It's really easy, obviously, clever to see that. But yeah,
that's really interesting. Perhaps Rachel, do you want to talk about what you were using as a search solution before Cleaver, and the improvement you have seen since implementing, and then again some of those insights that you do see, and how you use those to make some business decisions?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the provider we were using before for search, I'd like to say they were kind of predominantly actually a filter kind of provider, and they just happen to have like search as their kind of add-on. So, true to form, it was a fairly basic function. I've used Cleaver before in my prior company before joining, so I was kind of aware already of the features and I guess the benchmark standard that I expect for search. And because we were already in the midst of discovery, of going through Shopify 2.0, it just made sense that we elevated search at the same time. I'm very particular about our search function. I'm aware of the conversion, and despite the fact it could be a fairly small percentage of traffic who actually end up, using the search, but the conversion can be ×3, ×4. And to the case of our previous provider, we just weren't seeing that lift, and for obvious reasons, it was just not responsive enough. So we onboarded Cleaver, and I think Joe already touched upon the kind of bespoke kind of aesthetic part of it. That was definitely one. I wanted it to look like an extension of the site and not something completely separate in terms of design, because of the analysis that we already had, that customers were very, very specific about categories that they wanted to visit. I knew that Cleaver could do the straight redirects of those keywords into specific curated landing pages. And I think what I love also is that our customers love a hack. So some of our most popular Instagram posts, like reels, are all to do with how to style your curated ear stack and how to layer your necklaces. So but for us, having the function whereby when a customer search, and you'll obviously see products, but being able to see articles, blog posts, anything related to the actual key term, it's going to bolster the consideration for the buyer to convert. And we saw engagement in some of our blog articles increase due to that. So I think all those kind of things, and then obviously the AI element, the responsiveness, how quick it was, I knew the value of search, and I think choosing Cleaver was kind of a good decision overall. Since we've onboarded them since the last October, that's when we went live, we've seen revenue increase via search for about 54%. Conversion obviously is looking very favorable now compared to when we were using our previous provider. So yeah, we're very, very happy. And I think if you're looking at search, and if you're looking at your providers, I think it is definitely one of those providers you want to go with who know how to do search very well. It's not something you really want to just do on a whim, or have a provider who just has an add-on that has a search function. It is a very important part of your site, and we use a heat mapping tool called Clarity, and it's like a free Microsoft tool. It's a little bit like Hotjar, and we can see the engagement to search. And I would encourage like anyone watching this who does have a website, like do the same, like add a heat map, and even if it's clarity, it's free. It does a lot of functions that that you would need to just see where the customers are journeying. For me, I could see a lot of engagement going to the search, and that initially tells you, how valuable it is. So yeah, just be very mindful and considerate about the providers you use. But yeah, with Clearview, we're quite happy.
Yeah,
Great.
because sorry to interrupt. To add to that, yeah. So like as we understand it, it's the sort of average numbers are 8 to 15% of users engage with search, but that makes up on average 30 to 50% of transactions. So but we know it works really well, and that was again part of the project in making sure that it is engaged with. So it's little things like exposing search, like just not having it behind an icon makes such a huge difference. And it's like there's definitely, and this is again where you're finding that balance of form and function, because there's that, some would argue anyway, that aesthetical trade-off of having a search box there, and it's more minimal, maybe more desirable to just have the icon. But on mobile and desktop, having it exposed, we know increases engagement, which is better for conversion. I think since the site launched, engagement with search has gone up by 28%, and that's why basically. So it's been really good from my point of view, Rachel.
No, yeah, I agree. And also it is telling, because like our top search term is earrings. And it is in the navigation, but for whatever reason, people still want to go ahead and search it, which is obviously fine if that's how the customer wants to navigate. But it just shows that, the importance of exposing search, like you say. And down the line, we'll probably look at potentially put it in the navigation, like if people really want to search and they can't find it in the nav. Extra things that we can add on the list, Joe.
yeah, it's constantly evolving. No site ever stays still, does it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's really interesting. I think some key takeaways there: exposing the search both on mobile and desktop, and then of course not having it as an afterthought, considering it early in the journey, because of course these are your high intent buyers, so you want to make it as easy for them to find what they are looking for. Cool.
Well, you put what we said in 15 minutes into
We said far too many words for what you just said in a second.
Yeah. This would be very quick if you would just do all the talking.
Oh, that's all right.
Cool. Let's talk more about like tech partners. So needless to say, as you mentioned, some of your other tech partners, they play an important role in executing your omnichannel strategy, Rachel. So how do you leverage Shopify and the other tech partners to create that seamless customer experience across channels?
Well, I guess if I start with the Shopify side, it's fairly straightforward. Obviously, we use Shopify POS. So like I mentioned earlier, we know the data is one place. So if a customer logs in online, they're going to see their account history, which includes POS transactions, services, as well as your online orders. So I think, in a nutshell, having that kind of one account, one brand, it enhances that seamless journey aspect of it. We also have a feature on our site where you can go to a particular product. So you go on a PDP and you can look at the stock in each location. And we will evolve this later down the line. It will become a pickup in store service. It's on the roadmap, but it's things like that where those locations are already within our Shopify POS and it's linked, and it just kind of builds upon that omni-channel. Our biggest strategy obviously is to make sure that customers are not one channel customers, and we can see that very easily in Shopify to be able to do that. And then in terms of the other providers, so when I'm looking at onboarding other tech providers, and again, I'm very specific about who onboards with us, I always ask the questions like, whatever we're doing here online, how do we then cascade across our channels? Whether that be loyalty, can we use the points in store? Whether that's payment providers, can we? Yeah, it's the same kind of questions, but it's essentially leveraging these aspects and asking those questions earlier on and making a concerted decision. Like if your strategy is that omni-channel, the providers and the tech partners really need to kind of try and match. it's looking at that long term as opposed to kind of short term. Well, this is going to be great for my site. I'm going to see this massive conversion. But actually, if the strategy is building retail and breeding omni and it doesn't kind of service that, it's probably not worth really looking at for scaling. So yeah.
Cool. Kind of elaborating on POS, because obviously it can be used to integrate the omnichannel sales by sharing product info, sales data, inventory, customer info. But I know you use some of the other Shopify POS features, like the ship to customer, or as you call store to door, and the send cart functionality, which is your store to not sure. So do you want to elaborate on those and how they're working for you?
Yeah, sure. So like these are native features in the Shopify POS, but hilariously, we've only really just discovered them and started to try. Yeah, exactly. But like, I mean, they're really neat features. And I think these two services essentially combat one concern or problem, is a customer walking into store and not converting in any way possible with the brand, so not even with the store, with the brand, and losing that customer, because as we all know, customer acquisition isn't getting any easier in terms of costing and targeting. So if a customer walks into store, you know they're interested in the brand, you know that is the target for you. So with store to door, the function basically is that they come into store and they've seen something on TikTok. They've seen one of our advertised earrings, necklaces, new collection. The store does not have stock. So we can give the customer an option. We can say, hey, don't worry about it. We can actually send the product from our warehouse directly to you. No charge for delivery. Like you'll essentially, you can probably get it tomorrow if you come in early enough. And so we're not precious about obviously where the sale comes from. You're essentially just making sure that the customer has left on a good journey. And if I was a customer, I'd be like, yeah, I mean, great. Like, don't have to go with it straight away today and get it tomorrow, next day, etc. So I think since we launched that, it's still kind of early stages, but we've probably seen about maybe like 7 to 10 orders per week. And that's just like 1 or 2 stores. And for us, we foresee this particular function really ramping up over kind of like Q4. So I think we briefly mentioned about Advent earlier, but it is no joke. Like our Advents are very limited and very stock dependent. And I think the issue that we had last year is that we didn't anticipate the demand online, and actually we held probably slightly too much stock in store, and we were trying to work out how to reallocate, and it was a bit of a nightmare. So anyway, the nutshell to that essentially is saying, like, from a merchandising and stock holding point of view, using this feature is actually brilliant. And I think actually some other jewelry brands do this, where they hold no stock in store, and it's literally just kind of like show pieces, and they're like, oh no, don't worry, we'll just send it. But it's quite clever in a way, because you're capturing the customer, you're helping with your merchandising levels in your locations. So yeah, all in all, a good win for us. And then the last feature that you mentioned, so store to not sure, is essentially going into store as a customer, and you're looking at, I don't know, higher priced items. You've got £250 gold necklace, and you're like, oh, shouldn't I? And usually you would just leave and say, oh, do you know what? I'll think about it, which is obviously absolutely fine. As a next step, the store staff could literally say, hey, do you know what? I'll just send you an email. I'll send you an email, and it's got the product already in the email. And if you click on the link, actually you can check straight out, and it'll be linked to our online store. And again, it is, it's giving that customer the choice, and leaving them with a, oh yeah, I think I will think about it. But at least you've got a prompt. It's like an abandoned cart, essentially. And again, we've only very recently just launched it. I say launch, we're training our store staff and making sure they're aware that feature is there. And obviously when it gets busy, it's slightly trickier, but overall it's creating that complete 360 prompt or decision to make sure that they convert and they leave with options. So yeah, I mean, we're pleased to how it's going to go in the future, essentially Q4, when we're going through our peak period now over summer, but as you can imagine, during gifting season, Q4 is like our biggest period. So So yeah, they're the two main features.
Fantastic, great. I think let's talk a little bit about loyalty. How does an omnichannel approach impact customer loyalty and retention, and what strategies can businesses use to build long-term relationships with their customers?
Big old question. But yeah, I mean, down to the loyalty element of it, and Joe covered a lot of it, but you know, our key pillar for retention is obviously our loyalty scheme. And I want to preface this in saying that, like, when you think about building a loyalty scheme and when you think about launching it and deploying it, whether that's on site, online, in store, it is an ever evolving process. It is not something you just kind of launch and be like, great, I'm just going to watch the membership rolling in and everyone's going to be happy and they're going to be returning in a month. That really isn't the case. It's a constant evolution. You look at the data, you look at how the customers are using the subscription plan. Sorry, that sounded like a paid subscription, a membership plan. And then you tweak and you make adjustments and you listen to the feedback. So in terms of businesses, when you're thinking about customers and retention, make sure you're listening and making sure you're looking at the data and make changes as you go. So we did that. We launched with our 2.0 and we put, you know, loyalty everywhere, but even then we didn't always get it right. Customers were still confused in regards to the mechanics and how it works. So we made adjustments. You know, we went on site, we said, okay, as a new customer, are they getting confused? Is it too overly complex? Like, do we just need to simplify it? And I think in doing so, gradually, like, our loyalty stats look very, very healthy. So currently, year on year, we're seeing about 64% more customers actually transacting via loyalty points. And that it's still, like, you know, not 100% there. Like, there's still customers who definitely have points who, you know, are unaware of how to use them and, you know, have them sat there. But, you know, we work with our CRM team who work on automation and just to kind of like smooth out the process. Again, it is continuously evolving. And then the next step from that is, like, once you nail that foundational element of it, is just to make sure that your tiers actually mean something. You know, when you say you're giving double points or when you say there's special events, like, make sure they are within your go-to-market, it's within your roadmap for the year. I think customers need to feel they're part of the community, and you know, we obviously promote that heavily as part of our brand ethos. You know, we are a community brand. We do care about you know, our customers and their well-being. So, you know, we're going to make sure that they're rewarded in points, but also, you know, in other ways also. So yeah, hopefully that's covered that answer.
100%. Well, I'm conscious that I know we can, the three of us can talk all day, but I know we want to leave some time for the Q&A. So perhaps just the last closing remarks from you, Rachel. I know you mentioned buy online, pick up in store coming next. So just if we can wrap up on what's next for Astrid and Miyu in terms of your expansion plans and how you're going to continue to innovate and grow in the space. And if you've got any thoughts on some of the trends in omnichannel.
Yeah, definitely. So as my final thought, so I'll start with the trends. So I think, yeah, I mean, definitely looking at stores and looking at how you can differentiate yourself from the rest of the high street. You know, we've chosen a very kind of specific model and strategy in terms of pushing our services and, you know, creating a whole experience. But I think when you're looking at omnichannel, it's like you have to have that synergy, but, you know, make sure that there is incentives for a customer to go online. There are incentives for a customer to go in store. What are they? And, you know, nailing that and making it as seamless as possible is definitely something that's quite important as part of a overarching strategy. And then in terms of us and like what we're looking at ahead, so we're looking at international expansion. And we're looking to aggressively grow in that space. Again, we're quite established in the UK now, and I think building that brand awareness overseas, especially in the US. So we already have a store in New York, and we're looking at kind of like further locations in the future. But it's quite exciting for us because, again, like I feel like we've got very good foundations to scale in that respect, and we've already have the data to be able to make kind of very good nuanced judgments about localizations of certain areas, especially like with providers like Clevu who have that kind of segmented view on like key terms or what people are looking at. I think, going after those kind of like big countries and big cities is next for us, as well as continue to scale what we're doing in the UK. But watch the space. Oh, and also possibly an app coming. Need to kind of work on that, but like we get asked that a lot, like, oh, are we having an app? But when you're thinking about retention, etc., like that's probably a slight no-brainer. But
Right.
Watch the space.
Well, thanks, Rachel. Thanks, Joe. That sounds really exciting, and a lot of nuggets I'm sure that everybody listening can take away from that. If we're going to invite to the stage Fiona from Loyalty Lion and Claudia from Clevu, and they will join us for the Q&A side of the webinar.
Hello.
Great. So welcome. I know we've had there's quite a few questions in the chat going on at the moment, but we've had several questions already come through from the registration form. So perhaps we'll tackle those first, and if we don't get to all your questions in the chat, of course we'll follow up afterwards. So let's get cracking. One for you, Fiona. How do you use loyalty programs to collect customer data?
Well, that's a really good question. First of all, I just want to say Astrid and Miyu, my favorite brand to talk about. We've just opened a store in my hometown, Brighton, as well. So even more excited about that. But back to the question, sorry. Collecting customer data. I think it's one of the main reasons people are using loyalty programs today. The iOS 14 updates, GDPR, lots of other things have actually really hindered a marketer's ability to collect data that they need to deliver personalized messages now. But with a loyalty program, you've got people who are opted in who want to hear from you and will actually give you their details so that they can communicate. But more than that, you've actually got a vehicle for collecting more data. So we see lots of brands using quizzes and profiles and things to help with that. So for example, a skincare brand might offer points in return for completing a quiz so that they can send you the right products for your type of skin. Or we have pet brands who ask you to complete a pet profile in return for points so that actually you can email using the pet's name and things like that. So I think it's all about value exchange and actually showing customers that you're going to use the data that they share to deliver them a great experience. And your loyalty program actually gives you a pretty powerful way of doing that.
Great. Yeah, all about the first party data.
Yeah.
One for you, Claudia, maybe you can take this one. How will AI impact our e-commerce store?
Fiona, you also stole my line. Massive fan of the brand and Astrid and Miyu earrings too. But yeah, I guess it goes back to the question, like, how as a merchant do you want AI to impact your business? I mean, AI has the power to analyze vast amounts of data based on customer interaction and can really transform how e-commerce teams operate. If you look at AI in e-commerce, there's everything from personalized shopping, chatbots, fraud detection, visual search, and there is like a lot of noise in the market, especially with the wave of ChatGPT, generative AI. Only the other day, I got an email written from a client being like, "This has been written by ChatGPT." So we're definitely seeing it a lot more in day to day. We've got some clients using it to write product descriptions, translate websites into other languages. So it is a really interesting time for both merchants and vendors. And I think it does raise a question on like what is actual real AI and what is simply a marketing buzzword. So I think when merchants are looking at vendors that do a lot of work in AI, like do your due diligence and, what are your requirements? Like how much automation do you need versus, that strategic control element. And yeah, I guess here at Clevu, we are, experimenting a lot with this. Like we have always been AI driven, but we are looking more around like the chatbot. At the moment, we're actually in beta with Moi, which is a virtual chatbot, which is really exciting. So definitely interesting times. And yeah, I see ChatGPT every day at the moment. It's starting to drive me a bit nuts.
Just to add to what Claudia was mentioning as well, as a general kind of advice, I encourage anyone who hasn't already like used ChatGPT or explored AI, or if you're within the creative field and you haven't used something like Midjourney, to go in and start playing around. I've done that with my own team and within the company. I was like, don't be afraid of it. Like, it's coming, and obviously it's coming a lot more aggressively than we had probably planned, but it is something that could massively help support, your current, I don't know, kind of brainstorming or strategy. And like you guys saying, like looking at kind of like titles and SEO optimization, it's something that can help. So yeah, definitely have a play around with it if you haven't already, and see how you can incorporate it within your own business or everyday work tasks.
Yeah. I agree. Shopify has also embraced it massively and encourages us to do the same. Cool. Fiona, I think this one's for you. You kind of touched on it, but maybe you can elaborate a bit more. Acquisition costs are increasing. How does your loyalty program help you control that increase or work around it?
Yeah, it's another really good question. I think, again, super topical at the moment. I think most marketers in the last couple of years have just seen a spike in costs going up. And I think what we find as well is, unfortunately, the more your acquisition costs go up and your channels work less, the more you start feeling like you have to throw out discounts and get those sort of special offers into your ads to bring people in. And obviously those two things together, not good for your profit margins at all. So the acquisition benefits of a loyalty program, I think, are actually relatively under recognized, but they're definitely there. Your existing customers are probably the most effective or efficient acquisition channel that you have. Obviously there's the obvious stuff, like they can bring you new customers with referrals, but they can also be really powerful in terms of improving your conversion to new customers as well, because they're the ones that leave you the great reviews. They're the ones that answer questions about your products in a Facebook community. They're the ones that shout about you on social media. So yes, there's the official channel of referrals, but there's also 101 other positive behaviors that your existing customers can do, or you can drive with rewards that will help you gain and convert new customers and improve that acquisition flow, make it more efficient as well.
Thank you. Cool. I think this one probably best suited for Claudia or perhaps Joe. How much optimization does a search tool need? Do I need a resource?
Yeah, I can probably start.
You will know.
I should know. Yeah, I guess it depends on the size of the team. Like, we work with SMB merchants, mid-market, enterprise, and it really does vary across the size of the business and what you're looking to get out of a search solution. So we've got clients that literally plug Klaviyo in. They may bootstrap it with some data, or they may just let it learn from day one, and they don't do that much to it. They let it run. We've got other teams, that's slightly larger, that are really heavy on the merchandising, that look at things like keyword data. Very similarly, actually, from what Rachel said earlier, we had a client called Grenson's that had Holly Willoughby wearing her shoes, and she came onto site, and the team looked at the keywords, and they were searching for Holly. So then they merchandised products based around the keyword search and being Holly. So it depends on, I guess, the size of the team, the size of the product range, but it really does vary across our customer base, and also what solutions you're using. So some clients are search only, some use the full suite alongside the merchandising and the recommendations. But I guess the beauty with the AI is you can leave it and let it run, but you do also have the tools to be able to come in and create overrides when necessary. I guess, Joe, do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, I think there's a lot of parallels with Shopify itself, and probably Loyalty Line as well, to be fair, in that you can just install it and let it run, like you said. But the more you put into most things, the more you'll get out of it. So by making it really personalized and bespoke and custom, you will likely get more out of it. But ultimately, anybody can go and start a Shopify store, and you can be online and trading within a day, literally. I always say it's easier to use than Facebook. I'm not a Facebook user. I always say it to clients when they migrate over to Shopify: if you can use Facebook, you can use Shopify. That's how simple it should be.
I always describe it as like the iOS of the e-com platform world.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So,
yeah. Most of our projects are migrations from other platforms, so Salesforce or Magento or whatever they might be. But yeah, there's always that, you can see the moment when you show them how to use the back end of like just cogs turning, and oh wow, so it's that simple. I've gone completely off tangent now.
It's okay, we're all singing praise for Shopify. I won't stop you. Great. Well, we actually are at time, but maybe we'll squeeze in one more question. Rachel, if you want to take this one, how do you start doing omnichannel marketing, or perhaps where do you start? Where's a good place?
Well, I guess it really obviously depends on your current business model, on what those channels are. Like, are you pure play? Are you got concessions, wholesale, etc.? So, but I think like as a very base, what you really need to start doing, even before looking at kind of marketing and everything layered on top, is to just build out that customer journey. Like, take a huge step back and just look at all those customer touch points. So there's like 5 key pillars, and like, correct me if I'm wrong if anyone knows this, but it usually starts with like, where's your awareness coming from? And then the journey usually goes consideration, and then you go to purchase, and then there's a retention and advocacy. And like, if you're part of a business or you're part of a team, get them all to do it and just pinpoint those moments of when those customers have interactions with the brand. And I think most importantly, as well as looking at your opportunities within them for omnichannel, is to look at where you can potentially lose the customer. So where is your make or break? Like, is it at the time when they have a really terrible customer services journey, or they've passed the store and it's been closed, or it's all these things. But until you really map it and see how specific it is to your business, then you can start to think about, right, what are my opportunities here? And like, how do I go about building that foundational level of just making sure my acquisition cost isn't going down the toilet, because actually that whole funnel is broken. And then at the end, like, how do I then create them into advocates? So I think what Fiona touched upon about kind of building that community aspect with loyalty, like, how do I bring them in and then get them to bring other people in, and then start the whole cycle again, because then that becomes awareness, etc. So yeah, start there, get your teams to map out the journey, see what it looks like, and then build your strategy on top of it.
Amazing. Well, thank you. I know we're conscious we're a minute or two over, so that was perfect. We're going to wrap it up there. Any other questions we haven't gotten through in the chat, we can follow up with you directly afterwards. But a big thank you to Joe, Rachel, Fiona, and Claudia. I think a lot of takeaways from that conversation, and I hope everyone listening found it useful. So yeah, to everyone listening, thanks for taking time out of your day to listen to us, and have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks,
everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Bye.